Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm Marilyn and my channel is Making with Marilyn. Now a friend of mine had a couple of these cake domes and she asked me if I wanted them. And of course I said yes. So when I was trying to think of what to do with these, my niece came to mind. She's been in the bakery industry for years and years, but she's getting ready to open up her very first storefront later this month. So I'm going to go ahead and use this cake dome. I'm going to use some armor etch and I'm going to etch her logo into this cake dome. In addition to the cake dome and the armor etch, I'm going to cut it with my Cricut maker. I'm going to cut it using this Oracal 631 vinyl. I have some rubbing alcohol and paper towels to clean it. I have a weeding tool. I have a little popsicle stick. That's what I like to use to put this onto the glass. I have scissors. I have this little tool. I'm just going to use it kind of as a squeegee. I have some safety glasses and a glove. I have my measuring tape, and I have some transfer tape by HTV Ront. In addition to these things, of course, I'll be using my computer. So if you're interested in seeing this project and how it turns out, sit back, relax, and let's get started. Now, before I get started, if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing that. If you do, make sure you tap that bell and then select the all notifications. That way YouTube lets you know anytime I upload new content. Now, one of the very first things that you want to do when you're planning a design is you want to determine how large your design should be. And so let me go ahead and measure. This is just going to be words. It's going to be stretched out. I want it to cover almost the entire front, and it's going to be kind of short. So let's see. I think 10 inches would be just about ideal. So we're going to shoot for 10 inches wide. Now I want to keep the proportions what they are, so I imagine it's going to be about 2 inches, 1.5 inches tall. But 10 inches wide is what I'm shooting for. Then of course the second thing I want to do before I put anything on here, I want to make sure that my surface is clean. That's going to allow my stencil to stick really well, and it's going to give a really clean surface for the armor etch. So like usual, I'm going to use 90% rubbing alcohol. And let me see if there is a seam on this at all. There is no visible seam whatsoever. And so I'm going to go ahead and clean right here. All right, this alcohol will dry really quickly. So I'll set this aside while I am making my design and cutting it on my Cricut. Let's go ahead and open Cricut Design Space. And I'm going to click on New Project. And then I want to go to my desktop and find my design. So I'll click on Upload, Upload Image, and then I can either drag my file onto this screen here, or I'll say Browse. I'm in my desktop, so I'm going to look for Butter Plus Blooms. Now I can't put her actual logo on here. Let me show you what it looks like. See how it's tall? I just want the words Butter Plus Blooms. So today I worked with it and I thickened it up. Here it is, Butter Plus Blooms, words only thickened, so I'll say Open. Now it looks a little fuzzy. It is an SVG, so it should come in just fine. I'll say Continue and Upload. Okay, that looks great. Now it came in a little over 8 inches wide. Because my screen is narrow, I can't see how wide it is up here, so I have to click on More. I'm going to change this 8 to 10 inches. With the proportions locked, I'll hit Enter, and that made it just a little taller than 1.5 inches tall. Now I'd like it to be just a little bit taller, but I don't want it to look different than what she wants it to look like. So I can't do much, but I'll go up to More. I'll hit the Unlock. That way I can change the height without changing the width. I'm going to go ahead and change that to 1.75 inches tall. And I think that still looks good. I don't think it changed the character of her logo words at all. Now, because I'm wanting to make a stencil out of this, I'm actually going to be weeding out the words butter plus blooms. So let's go ahead and put a rectangle around that will protect my glass surface. I'm going to go to Shapes. And then I want this really squared off square. I'm going to make it into a rectangle. But this rectangle has really rounded corners. So let's start with a square. And then we're going to go back to more. We are going to unlock the proportions. And then let's go ahead and get rid of this so you can see more. With this selected, I'm going to change those proportions. So the widest I can do is 11.5 inches, unless I want to use my 24-inch mat, turn it sideways, but I don't. So I'll change the width, and then let's go ahead and change the height to 4 inches. Now, just so I can see better, let's change this to a light yellow. And then with it selected, I'm going to go up to Arrange, and I'll say Send to Back. Let me go ahead and select both of those items, go to Align, and let's go ahead and center it both ways, vertically and horizontally. The last thing that I need to do so that it cuts out exactly like this, with both items selected, and remember they were both selected when I centered it, I'll hit Attach. Now what it'll do is it'll cut around the outside of my rectangle, and it'll cut each letter and the plus sign. Then I'll weed out butter plus blooms, and that'll be my stencil. So at this time, I'm ready to go ahead and say Make. I don't need to save this. I'll go ahead and say Continue. And then I'm just going to use this vinyl setting. Now my machine is flashing, it's ready for me to load my material. So let's change the camera back to the overhead camera. Let's keep working on this project. Now I want to go ahead and put this material on my Cricut mat, and remember the design was all the way up to the top and it was 4 inches tall, and my vinyl is over 5 inches. So if you have a brayer, you can go ahead and really bray this down or roll this brayer over it to get it to stick well. You want to make sure that when you put your cutting mat in the Cricut, it's under these little clips. And then I like to clean my blade, or at least check my blade. That looks good. I can go ahead and press this flashing arrow. That just loads my material. Then the C is flashing, so it's ready to cut. The load unload light's flashing, so I'll press it and it's going to unload my material. We're done with the maker, so let's go ahead and put that up. To remove my material, in this case vinyl, I like to flip my mat over, hold my material down on the table so it stays pretty flat. That keeps it from curling, and then peel back my mat. You want to make sure you cover this up to keep it clean. So when you get a new mat and it has that clear plastic cover on it, go ahead and keep that. Just reuse that over and over. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this outer vinyl. So you kind of weed backwards to what you normally do. Normally you keep your design and you weed the rest away, but in this case, you're weeding away what you want to engrave or what you want to etch. Now when you're doing this, take your time. If something comes up that's not supposed to come up, just press it back down before you pull these out. Perfect. Now I'm going to use this HTV Ront transfer tape. I really like this. And I'm going to try to put this on straight so that this grid makes sense to keep my design straight on my cake topper. Hopefully that made sense. So I want my transfer tape just a little bit larger than this rectangle. And so I think I'll cut right there. So sometimes it's easier if you flip your transfer tape over, just like that. And then because I want to try to keep this straight, I think what I'll do is not what I was doing. Let me go ahead and put that back down. I want to expose the bottom of this. And then I'm going to go ahead and fold this paper back just a little bit, the backing of the transfer tape. And then maybe I can put this red line right along the bottom of this. If I can do it, that'll keep it nice and straight. Okay, maybe it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Now what I'll do is I will just pull this out from under it and press down on my transfer tape as I go. And that's what I like to use this tool for. I want to go ahead and really adhere this to my transfer tape. Now, I have a little bit of an air bubble right here. Maybe that won't make a difference. I don't know if I can get that up. Nope. I cannot get that up without pulling up my vinyl. See if I can pull that apart. I don't think it would make a difference, but it might have, because the fold in it went almost to the B. And you don't want anything wrong with your stencil where the letters are. I still have a little bit there, but I don't care up there because that's not going to affect my etch. All right, let's go ahead and flip it over, remove the back, and just like before, you want to go slow so that if any of the centers of those letters peel up with this, you can press it back down, rub on the top, and hopefully they stick the second time. Okay, so see that B is coming up, the center of that B? Let's go ahead, press it back down. Really push on it. Hopefully this time it stays down. And it did. Okay, so this is the clean part. And I might have to do this with it setting down. I apologize that you can't see it as well as I can. And now I'm going to go ahead and cut off this extra transfer tape because I want the bottom of the black rectangle to pretty much be at the bottom of my cake dome. And that was just going to be in the way. All right, so my cake dome is flat on the table. And then if I put my vinyl flat on the table, just wrap this around, hoping this turns out pretty well. I'm not sure. It kind of angled down a little bit. Look at that. I don't know if that's going to make a difference. See the inside, how that angled? I think I'm going to have to live with that. Let's see. That inside of that bee does not want to pull up. Let me look and see if it looks fairly straight. Okay, I'm going to live with it. That's hard for me to say, but I'm going to live with it. Now, I want to go ahead and burnish this down, especially where the letters meet the cake dome. I don't care if there's bubbles elsewhere, but where you have letters on the cake dome, you cannot have bubbles at all. If you do, that armor etch is going to seep under those, and you're not going to have a very good result. So now I want to remove my transfer tape. Let me try to start over here. Now, if you have permanent vinyl, because you would only be leaving it on the glass for a short amount of time, you could use that. This is not permanent vinyl, but I've used this on my other glass etching projects and it's turned out just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this straight back. Everything seems to be staying down well. Once I get it off, I'm going to inspect it for any bubbles where the vinyl meets the openings. All right, everything stayed down beautifully, but look at right above this bee. You see how that vinyl is starting to kind of lift? And I can see right here, I almost have it where right above that, it wants to lift. And so I want to go ahead and cut some slits in it so that that has some place to lay down. Anytime you're doing things on curved surfaces, you have this issue. So I'm going to cut it, press down, and then just lay it back down. There's a lot of bubbles in here. I don't care about them at all. See all those bubbles? They're not up against the letters, so they won't affect the etch. Now, you want to go ahead and protect your table with something, whether that's old newspapers, paper plates, printer paper. It really doesn't matter. I'm just going to use some butcher paper. And then I already shook mine up before I started the video, but you want to make sure this is shaken up really well. Also, you probably want to open this over a trash can because you're going to have a lot of little dried parts and pieces that are going to fall off onto your table if you don't. So before the video, I shook it up and I opened it up over a trash can so those dried parts and pieces would fall in the trash can. I'm going to go ahead and put on a glove. And then because the first time I used this etching cream, I had a little piece of it flick up and land right by my eye, I am going to use safety glasses. I'd recommend that for you as well. Now this has a safety cap, so you have to kind of push down while you're opening it. And this is where I use my popsicle stick. So this is about half gone. This is really a large bottle. I didn't think I'd ever use it all, and I'm already halfway through with it. But I want to go ahead and get some on this popsicle stick. I want to make sure I don't have any on my hand when I touch this glass because it will etch it. I'm just going to dab it down onto the letters. And then let me move this over a little bit. You want to use it so that you have quite a bit on there. You don't want to be too sparing. Anything that you don't use, or actually anything that is still on your vinyl before you rinse it off, you can scrape that up and put it back in the bottle. Now over here by the bee, I probably should have put some tape or something to the left of this bee because I only have about a ½ inch of protection over there. And this stuff does run. So just keep dabbing this on until you have everything covered. And this stuff works really fast. I've seen people on videos where they've left it on for like 45 minutes to an hour. I've tried leaving it on 5 minutes, 30 minutes. I didn't see a bit of a difference between the two. So I just leave it on 5 or 10 minutes. All right, I'm going to go ahead, keep doing this. I'll probably fast forward. And then once I get it covered, I'll be back. Now, once I have the whole thing covered, I like to, every couple of minutes or so, I like to kind of go back, move the etching cream around. That way, if there are any pockets of air between the etching cream and the glass, you kind of work those out. Now, I'm going to keep a good eye on this and make sure that it's not running down toward the table. And I see I got a tiny bit up here. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe that off. And you may or may not be able to see, but there's some chunks in this. And that's because you get dried up little chunks that fall back in it if you're not careful. And apparently, I wasn't very careful. And so you probably don't want one of those dried up chunks against your glass for the whole time either. Now let me go ahead and try to just wipe off a lot of this. Then I'm going to take it to the bathroom and rinse it off. Now I told you you could put some of this back in your container. That's what I should have done. But I forgot. And there's so many chunks in this. This is getting so old. I'm not sure I want to keep doing that. There's what it looks like so far. I'll be back in a minute. Now I left my safety glasses on the entire time I was cleaning this off. I still have them on, in fact. So let's peel this vinyl off, see how it turned out. I can see it. Now it's just etching, so it's not overwhelming. It's just a nice little touch in the glass. I think it's going to be really, really nice though. Might be hard for you to see, but wait till I dry this all off. This is going to be such a perfect store opening present. All right, I need to clean this whole thing up, but let me show you what it looks like so far. It looks really, really nice. I probably need to turn that upper light off, don't I? I got my work surface cleaned up, my hands cleaned, got this washed and dried, and look how great this looks. It's kind of hard for the camera to pick it up. It's nothing that's in your face. It's just a beautiful engrave in something I think my niece will cherish. With a little bit of armor etch, a piece of glass, some transfer tape, and some vinyl, you can come up with some great projects. So thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you spending your time here. And until my next video, bye-bye.